Previous lesson, we looked at how to add fractions. And so in this lesson, we're just going to take it one step further, and this time we're going to be adding mixed numbers. So we're just going to be starting with whole numbers and fractions. So it's not anything more than what we're doing before, but it's just nice to have it be a separate lesson so that we make sure we have all of our steps down of what to do. But we are going to be doing the exact same thing that we did before when we were just adding fractions that did not have whole numbers on them. The very first thing that we need to do is get common denominators. And so I'm just going to rewrite each of these. We'll find the common denominator in a moment. But I'm going to leave my whole numbers alone, and I have my two fraction bars. So here we have 2/3 and 1/6. I need to find a common multiple between 3 and 6 because those are our denominators. So for 3, that would be like counting by threes, or 3, 6, 9, 12, and going up from there. Counting by sixes would be like 6, 12, 18, and going up from there. I do see a common multiple, which is 12, and I also see 6. We could do either one. I'm going to use 6 because it's a smaller number. We won't have to simplify so much when we're done. So that'll be our least common multiple. So we're going to use 6 as our common denominator. Here we already had 1/6, so that one's going to stay the same. Here we had 2/3. We need to know how many 6 that is. So to get from 3 to 6, I'm going to times by 2. And whatever we do to the bottom, we're going to do to the top. So 2 times 2 is 4. All right, check. Step 1 is done. We have gotten common denominators. Step 2 says we need to add fractions together. So here I have 4/6. Here I have 1/6. I'm going to add those together. 4/6 plus 1/6 equals 5/6. Check. I have added the fractions together. Step 3 says add the whole numbers together. So we have a 1 and a 2. So 1 plus 2 will give us 3. So check, we've added the whole numbers together. Step 4 says simplify our answer if we need to. In this case, we don't have to simplify. 5/6 is already in simplest form. So 3 and 5/6 is our final answer. So when we're adding mixed numbers, there are always 4 steps. Step 1, get common denominators. Step 2, add the fractions together. Step 3, add the whole numbers together. And step 4, simplify the answer if we need to. So we're going to try a couple examples. We're going to start with this one. We have 3 and 4/5 plus 6 and 2/7. So if we look back, we're not sure what our first step was. Again, our first step is to get common denominators. So I'm going to rewrite this down here of what it will look like when I rewrite it with common denominators. And now I can find it. So we need to find a common denominator between 5 and 7. So for 5, the multiples would be like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 25, 30, 35, and so on. For 7, it will be like 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, and so on. And I can see that our common denominator here is going to be 35. So I'm going to write that in down here and rewrite our fractions in terms of 36. So to get from 5 to 35, we have to times by 7, and whatever we do to the bottom, we're going to do to the top. And 4 times 7 is 28. And here we're going from 7 to 35, so 7 times 3 would be 21. 7 times 5 is 35, and whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top, and 2 times 5 is 10. So we finished step 1. Again, step 1 was to find the common denominator. Now we're going on to step 2, which says add the fractions together. So I'm just going to write it down here. Here we have 28/35. Here we have 10/35. Remember, when we add fractions, the denominator stays the same. We're just going to add the top, which will be 38. So now we've added the fractions. Step 3 says add the whole numbers together. So we have a 3 plus 6, which will give us 9. And our final step said to simplify our answer. So as I look at this, I see that 38/35 is an improper fraction. So I need to change that into a mixed number. And again, to change an improper fraction into a mixed number, we're going to take the numerator divided by the denominator. So 35 goes into 38 once. That would be 35. I'll subtract and get 3. If I wanted to keep going, I'd have to write a decimal. If I have to write a decimal, I'm done because we don't want decimals when we're working with fractions. So our whole number is 1, and then our fraction is 3/35. Now this is not our answer. This was just our fraction piece written as a mixed number. We can't forget about our whole number out here. We had a 9, plus we now have a 1 over here. So our new total, our new fraction is 9 plus 1, which is 10 and 3/35. So it's very important to make sure we don't forget about our mixed numbers that we had here and our whole number to start with. Make sure we include that. So let's try another one. Just like when we're adding fractions before, there are a lot of steps, so it's good to just keep practicing over and over it until you get the hang of it. So here we have 12 and 7/8, and we have 4 and 3/4. Step 1, get common denominators. So I'm going to write my fraction down, and now I'm going to find my common denominators between 8 and 4. So counting by 8 would be like 8, 16, 24, 32, and so on from there. Counting by 4s would be like 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, going on from there. And I do see our first common denominator, our first common multiple, which is 8. So here we already had 8 for our denominator, so that fraction will stay the same. Here we have 4ths, and we're going to change it into 8. So to get from 4 to 8, we're going to times by 2. And whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. And 3 times 2 is 6. So step 1, we got our common denominator. Step 2 says add your fractions together. So we have 7/8 plus 6/8. Our denominator will stay the same, and 7 plus 6 is 13. Step 3 says add our whole numbers together. 12 plus 4, which is 16. And lastly, step 4 says simplify if you need to. Well, I do see an improper fraction here, so we're going to have to change that back into a mixed number. So remember, we're going to take 13 divided by 8. And 8 goes into 13 one time. That would be 8. 13 minus 8 is 5. If I want to keep going, I'd have to write a decimal point. That means we're done because we don't want decimal points when we're working with fractions. So 1 will be our whole number. And then 5, our remainder is our numerator. And 8 stays the same. Are we done? Almost. We need to go back and look at what we were just working with. We had 16 and 13/8. Our 13/8 changed into 1 and 5/8. So we need to add our whole number and our new improper fraction that we wrote as a mixed number. So 16 plus 1 will be 17, and then our fraction is 5/8. So our answer is 17 and 5/8. We're going to try one more problem here, see if we can get it. And we have 6 1/3 plus 5 1/2. Again, step 1, whenever we're adding fractions, is to find common denominators. So I'm going to rewrite my fractions down here, so I'm ready to add our common denominator. And then our common denominator. Counting by 3s will be 3, 6, 9, 12, and so on. Counting by 2 is going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and going up from there. And I do see a common denominator, a common multiple, which is 6. That will be our common denominator. So here we'll have 6. Here we'll have 6. So now to get from 3 to 6, we're going to times by 2. And whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. So 1 times 2 is 2. Then we're going to do the same thing for 1/2 over here. To get from 2 to 6, we're going to times by 3. Whatever we do to the bottom, we do to the top. And 1 times 3 is 3. Step 1, find your common denominators. We've done that. Step 2 says add your fractions together. So I have 2 6 plus 3 6, which is 5 6. And then I have 6 plus 5. This is our next step, which is add the whole numbers. 6 plus 5 is 11. Step 4 says simplify if we need to. 5 6 is already in simplest form, so in this case I do not have to simplify. 11 and 5 6 is my answer. So as a recap, when we're adding mixed numbers, we have 4 steps. Step number 1 is to get common denominators. No matter what, when we're adding fractions, we have to have common denominators, so that's the step we always start with. Step 2, we're going to add the fractions together. Remembering that the denominators stay the same, we're just adding the numerators. Step 3, we're going to add the whole numbers. And then lastly, if need be, we're going to simplify. And in some cases, that might mean changing an improper fraction into a mixed number. And in some cases, that might be actually just simplifying a fraction. So making an equivalent fraction for one that we already have. But as long as you follow these 4 steps for adding mixed numbers,